Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening on Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and this evening I'm speaking with Chloe, who's the author of SPLISH, SPLASH, SPLOSH, a new children's book about the adventures of two puppies and their mum. So welcome, Chloe. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
So tell us about SPLISH, SPLASH, SPLOSH. Well, give us the overview of your new book.
So SPLISH, SPLASH, SPLOSH, it's inspired by dogs that I've had in my lifetime, 3 dogs that we had at the one time, Bindi, Tika and Princess. And it follows Bindi and Tika as they spend a day just causing trouble, really. They go outside in the morning and splash around in muddy puddles, getting themselves all muddy. And their mother Princess, wants them to come inside and clean up. She gets them inside, but once they're inside, they cause some more trouble and spread mud all over the house, and then they go on to spread water all over the house. It's just a fun story to show 2 puppies causing a lot of trouble and a very patient mother cleaning up after them and having fun with them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well done. And these are your dogs. They were your dogs, you said. So your inspiration was fairly clear. So you found this story, but do you feel you've got other stories you want to share too, coming in the future with these sort of characters?
Yeah, definitely. Then possibly another couple of stories with the same characters, but we also have other dogs that I think could be very good characters. We have a very special dog, Pebbles, who may feature in an upcoming book. She's quite special, and I think could be a lot of fun for the young kids.
I like that. That's very good. So you've only just really started writing. This is your first book. You're young, still in high school. So how have you found developing your craft, like understanding really writing as a craft, as being such a beginner into it now?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't think I really have yet. I've still got so much to learn. Every time I sit down and write, I learn something new about writing and about myself. This was really a huge part of this story was editing it personally. I wrote it all down and then I went back and, it's just taking the time to look through it and be happy with, I guess, each word that I've got on the page and the story that it's conveying. It's having the confidence to, even if you don't like what you've originally got on the paper, knowing you can edit and change it and learn every time you look at it again.
So you were okay with that part of it? Like, because some of the writers get challenged by cutting words or losing the feeling and rewriting, they get in a trap. And so you found it, you're okay in that craft discipline, like the artistic process there?
It is quite hard, knowing which words to cut out and which ones to keep, really getting the right balance of words and everything like that. But I think the editing process is probably where the most confidence comes from in the end for me, because I know that I'm actually happy with the words I've got down. If I don't edit it, then I'm probably second guessing everything anyway. So the editing is quite important to me.
Good. And you have family support, and do you have a network of peers who maybe read and criticize or constructively and help you, or do you find that you want to keep it secret and try to craft it first before people see it? And what's your process in letting gaining that support?
A bit of both, really. For this book, I wrote it all and spent a fair bit of time editing it, and then I went to a friend who has a young nephew, and I got her to read it to her nephew just to see what, I guess, a young kid's reaction was. And she came back and told me that he really enjoyed it and that his mum really enjoyed it. So that was, I guess, the point where I went to my friends and was like, hey, I've got this. Can you see what you think? And then I approached you.
Awesome. So how did you find, I guess now with it published, a real book in the real world, how have you found the response? How have you found the support that you've received?
Yeah, it's been really fantastic. So I've talked to different teachers at school, my friends, and they've all been so excited for me. I took a copy of the book into school to show my teachers and friends, and they were pretty much jumping for joy for me. It was really exciting to share that with them. And my friends and I are going to go down the street and see it in bookstores soon. So it's
well done.
Been really supportive.
That's awesome. Well done. You deserve it. So when you're writing or creating, like when you're getting all these ideas and you want to put them out on paper, does that inspire you, or does it exhaust you? Do you find the process overwhelming, or how's the experience of actual inspiration for you?
I love writing. I do both English and literature at school, so that probably says something. It can be exhausting if you try and force yourself to write when you don't have an idea already there. For me, I guess I do the most writing when I have like a spark of inspiration or some idea forming, and I just sit down and just write. And I think the thing that makes it less exhausting is doing it when it works for you. So I may be lying in bed and I have a spark of idea, and I'll just jump up and write it all down, because that's when it's there. Whereas if I set a scheduled time and say, when I get home from school, I'm going to sit down and write for half an hour, that can be hard, because then there's that pressure on myself to write something in that half an hour.
Yeah, you don't want to put too much pressure on. You got to keep the fun in it as much as possible. I always say. Exactly. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about your expose in the paper recently. How did you find being featured and promoted publicly around town as a bit of a celebrity now? Like, if you had any feedback yet from the paper article?
I haven't had any feedback yet, and not a lot of my friends read the paper, so I might take a copy of that in tomorrow to show them. But yeah, I saw it this afternoon. It's pretty exciting to see it out there. Hear my voice on the radio as well. It's quite surreal, I think, still.
Is that me? Is that what I sound like?
Yeah.
So you've written in the article in the paper, you were talking about writing dystopian and fantasy stories as well for young adults. So do you find the contemplation of the crafting process as more difficult for writing a fuller book as opposed to a children's book? Now, children's books have a different art or a different craft, but there's still an element in writing a bigger book. Again, do you find that daunting, or do you think, you've got that planned or plotted in your head how you're going to do that?
It is definitely daunting. I've done a couple of NaNoWriMos, so that's writing as much as you can, or like setting a goal and writing to that goal throughout the month of November. And it is quite daunting to write so much. And for, I guess, an older audience, especially when I'm still at the age of who those books would be targeted to. Yep. But yeah, like children's books are quite difficult as well. You have to strike a balance with the language for, appealing to the adults buying and potentially reading the books to the children, and keeping the children engaged in the story as well. So both of them have their own elements of difficulty and dauntingness. I don't think that's a word, but yeah, both of them are.
Well, that's the thing, being a writer, you do have license to create some of your own words and language. Look at Tolkien. So now with Splish Splash Splosh, sorry, get those three words in the right order. When you were a child of this age for this book, did you have a favorite book, like around 5 or 6 or 7, that you feel, you recall having a children's book at that age?
Yeah, there was so many. I remember the bookshelves were just full of them, really. There was a few, By the Light of the Moon. I've actually got it on my shelf. I can't remember who it's by. I can grab it if you'd like.
Yeah, grab it. Have a look.
Sheridan Kane. So
Sheridan
By the
Kane,
Light of the Moon by Sheridan Kane. This was one of my absolute favorites.
It's beautiful.
Also, when I started reading smaller novels, I quite liked the Pony Pal series. Puppy Place, of course. A lot of kids would remember that. But yeah, By the Light of the Moon was probably my favorite kids picture book.
Good. Do you feel that you liked it? What did you like about it? Did you feel like it was an emotional journey, or was it more a visual journey, or was it, the poetry, limerickry, or what's the sort of style of thing you remember and love most about a children's book?
I think the experience of reading it. I went back and read it the other day because I couldn't quite remember what the actual story was. And I think just remembering, sitting down, I'd, have a blanket around me. My mum would read with me. Just that experience of feeling joy and happiness when I was reading a really warm, cozy book. And I think they're the kinds of memories, feeling so much happiness when I was reading, that has inspired me to keep reading and now writing as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with the book you've crafted, the children's books and the series that you hope you might come more books to come, that's what you're going for? Is that getting that children's memory, that children's experience in your book, in the story?
Yes, I think if a child is reading a book and they're not having a joyful experience, they're going to associate that with books and reading. I think that's such an important thing, is having stories that inspire and make you happy. Splish, Splash, Splosh is quite a fun story. I'm hoping to make kids laugh and have a good time while they're reading, to keep them reading. I think that's really important, yeah.
Absolutely, no, it is. And we all have that memory of the books we've read when we were kids. I won't bore you with going back to the 50s when I was a kid. But anyway, the Splish, Splash, Splosh. So with this book, how long did it take you to actually write it? Like, as in, putting it together, doing the pieces of editing, and then, working out the strategy to try and approach a publisher or think what to do next. How long did that sort of evolve for you? You must have been younger when you started writing it, so.
Yeah, it's been a few years. I'm trying to remember when I actually wrote it. Must have been 2017, possibly, when I actually wrote it, because Bindi was still a puppy. Might have been 2016 even. She was quite young. Tika was older than she is in the story. But yeah, Bindi was a puppy. She's 5 now. So it's been a fair few years.
Yeah. So did you think you would get to this point, or did you?
Definitely not, no.
No?
When I wrote it, there was never an intention at that point to publish it even in the near future. I thought maybe, once I'm graduated school and maybe even out of university, I would write a book. I always wanted to do that, but I never thought it would be that story or at this age.
No, it's good. I'm glad you reached out and researched and decided to have a look at, and you're supported by your family, which is wonderful. They've been really involved in the process for you and supportive for you. So how did you find the collaboration with your artist? We set you up with Tess, and we made sure that the right feel for the book had the right look. How did you find that process, now that you had written the book in your head and you'd had it for a few years, to then sort of let somebody else grab it and sort of visualize it and bring it up for you?
Yeah, I found it really positive experience. I still haven't actually met Tess because of everything with COVID. But the most important thing for me was that the characters resembled the dogs that they are based on. And so, I shared pictures with Tess of the dogs, and she came back to me with sketches that I was honestly instantly happy with. She really brought to life the dogs using those pictures. She checked in with me, making sure that I was happy with everything the whole time. But yeah, was a really good match. Yeah.
That's good. So when you're writing and visualizing, obviously you have some pictures in your head about the books and stories you want. What would you say would be your kryptonite? Like, what stops you writing? What stops you getting inspired or feeling the mojo?
Probably the pressure I put on myself for it to be perfect straight away. I have to remind myself of how important editing is, and the fact that editing exists. I think I can put that pressure on myself this has to be perfect for anyone to read it as soon as it's on the paper.
Yes.
And then that brings me up short with that. So just remembering that I can go back and edit, and with writing books, I don't have to show anyone until I'm ready, until I'm happy with it.
That's right.
So just write for me, and then worry about whether I want anyone else to see it.
Makes you feel sorry for those guys that used to have to write all their books in stone. They used to chisel them all in stone, and then they make a spelling mistake. Can you imagine trying to go, oh my God, let's start again?
Yeah.
But for you, like being young and new to it, and I guess having the exposure of the world now with so much more information available to you, how have you identified, or what do you identify as being successful as a writer for you personally?
For me personally, just making the readers happy in some way. Some books are completely devastating and sad, but it's the reader's experience that's most important to me. So with my kids' book, I'll consider myself successful if I can just make one kid happy from my book. That's the most important thing to me.
Good. I'm sure you'll make many happy, don't worry. So do you, little secret here, just to see, you can share if you wish, or not. We won't hold it against you, but do you hide any little secrets in the books? Did you talk to Tess about putting any little pictures in the books, the little only people who know you might know of, or know the dogs? Did you have any ideas for that?
I haven't, no. Not that I can remember. There might be some little secrets in there that I might discover.
Well, that's a plan for the next few books. What do you reckon? We'll put a few in the next few books.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll set some things up for little kids to follow. So now, normally I ask this question to an older writer, a more seasoned writer. So this way I'm going to reverse it. So the question normally goes, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self something, what would you tell them? So now I'm going to put it on reverse and say, Chloe, if you're watching this in 20 years, what would you say to yourself in 20 years from now? What do you hope that you would say to you? That's a bit of a thought, isn't it?
How old will I be in 20 years? I'll be nearly 30 in 20 years.
Remember, your kids might be watching this too. You never know.
I think I would say to myself, I would check in with myself and make sure that I'm still having as much fun with my writing as I am now, that I haven't ended up putting too much pressure on myself to keep writing, stories that I may not enjoy writing and things like that. So just remind myself that I love writing, I love reading, and that's part of why I love writing, and to always prioritize the enjoyment of that first and foremost, because if I enjoy writing the story, then the likelihood of the story being more enjoyable to read is a lot higher.
Absolutely. So you, on that sort of definition then, feel you will be writing for a long time?
I hope
it's going to be a primary. Do you feel it's going to be a primary position, primary job, or do you have other plans? What other things might you be doing in your life? What are you going to be looking at doing?
At this point, I am thinking about being a teacher. I'm wanting to teach in psychology and English primarily. And a part of that, I do want to keep writing. Again, it comes back to that being enjoyable. I want writing to be something that I can come home from perhaps a stressful day at work or something and just sit down and enjoy my time writing a story.
That's right.
Definitely keep writing.
And remember what Hemingway said? He said, write drunk and edit sober. Or was it write sober, edit drunk? I can't remember what he said.
Yeah, I think it was write drunk, edit sober.
Yeah, so I think you just grab a bottle of wine and go into your office and get home and just write away when you're older. So that's really good. So have you ever, being such a novice new writer, which is still a fantastic achievement, have you had any writer's block experiences? Have you ever felt you just can't do it and then it goes on for weeks, and then do you ever have worrying moments where you may not get that feeling back, the story back, or you might not get back on track? Have you experienced that yet? That's quite a big thing for some writers.
Not so much with my stories that I'm writing like this one. A lot of the time for school, which probably isn't a great thing, I sit down and I, again, put that pressure on myself for it to sound really good, especially for literature. And I do get a bit of writer's block. I guess the good thing about school is I have deadlines, so I have to just write.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely have experienced that.
How do you handle it? Do you have steps or processes, or do you just let it write it out, or how do you find yourself doing it?
I usually go and get myself a coffee. And then I just try to dot point what I'm trying to say and what I'm wanting to say, and then just build sentences from there so that I don't get stuck in that loop of just staring at a blank screen.
And not put all that pressure on yourself, you keep saying. So that's right. So what was I going to say there? What would you say, one last thing, if we had to, spy on you writing, what would you say we would discover as your little writing quirk? Now, some people write with certain music, some people write in certain shoes, some people write with no clothes on, some people write upside down. So what would you say you might have as a little interesting habit that's a bit odd?
Well, if you're going to be spying on me writing, definitely get yourself a cup of coffee, because it often happens very late at night or early in the morning, around 2 or 3 a.m. some days.
So you're nocturnal.
But also if I'm working through dialogue or anything really, I often speak out loud to myself, not in my normal voice.
Yep.
There's a few different accents for different characters at different times. So might be quite amused by that. Yeah.
So you animate yourself for the purpose of the book's inspiration. I like it. Very good. Well, thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and telling us, and everyone watching. So everybody watching, Splish, Splash, Splosh is available everywhere. Go to your local bookstores, support local bookstores, or you can buy it online. Chloe is always around as well, so you can reach out to through us. But thank you so much for watching and listening, and supporting a young, new, aspiring author. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody, and buy the book. And thank you for watching. Be good. Now.